So I want to welcome everybody. I'm Pete Erickson. I'm the founder of Modev. And just a short bit about us. We believe that human connection is vital in the era of digital transformation. We've been doing this 15 years, and it's connecting people. And today, this is what we do. This is our Merlot, and we are really excited to bring you all together around this really important topic. Our host today is a company called ReadSpeaker, and we've been very fortunate to get to know ReadSpeaker over the last 7 years. They've been participating in our conferences at Voice and AI. And the nice thing about ReadSpeaker is this company has been around for 25 years. They are steeped in this topic of automatic speech recognition, text-to-speech, and accessibility is at the forefront of what it is they do. They're a global organization. They're headquartered out of Japan, and we're working with the North America team today, which I'm going to introduce, and they're going to host our webinar. So just give me a moment here. I'm going to introduce our co-hosts. Paul Stisser is he's a lifelong educator. He's been at this for 20 years in focusing on special education, assistive technologies, at-risk students. And he heads up ReadSpeaker's North America Education and Government Solutions teams. So, Paul, we're really looking forward to hearing from you and your expertise in this space. Joining Paul is Ginger Dewey. She taught for 38 years in K through 12, so definitely hats off to you, Ginger, in all the work and service you've done. But now she's working for ReadSpeaker, and she is, training faculty members, folks in the education sector about accessibility, how to make your websites, your mobile applications truly accessible. So these aren't just cheap plugins. This is actually really making sure that you service your constituents. This webinar today is about the DOJ rulings and the regulations that are coming down that really require public sector organizations, but even large commercial organizations, to meet requirements for text-to-speech and automatic speech recognition and more. And ReadSpeaker is one of the platforms that really is a deep technical solution. And again, not just a plugin solution. We'll hear more about that today. So with that said, I want to welcome everybody today. I'm going to turn this over to Paul and Ginger that are going to run this show. And we have the ability for you to ask questions. There's a Q&A button down there. So definitely use it. We'll be monitoring the chat as well. And so Ginger and Paul, if you don't mind introducing yourselves, and then we're going to push out some quick poll questions to get to know you a little bit better.
Thanks, Pete, for the introduction. To be honest with you, you said enough about me. I think we should really dive right into it. I've been at ReadSpeaker, Paul Stisser, VP of North America Education. Been with ReadSpeaker now going on to, I think, 13 years. Headed up a lot of the North America education initiatives regarding websites and learning management systems and our integrations and collaborations with publishers into those verticals. So thank you for the kind introduction. Over to you, Ginger.
I'm Ginger Dewey, and I've been at ReadSpeaker now for 6 years. I had 4 years in K-12, and the rest of those years were on higher ed. I don't think I could have done 38 years in K-12.
Okay. Got you, Ginger. I gave you, yes. Thank you for correction.
That's okay. And one of the things that I bring to ReadSpeaker is the onboarding, the training, the educational support that you need. And I have a love for accessibility and UDL.
Well, thank you so much for both of you. I think we're going to push out our first poll question to get to know you better. Jamie, can you please push out the first poll questions? That is, I think we've got a couple questions here that you can, and please take these polls. It gives us an opportunity to know you better and to help guide our conversation. So we're going to run this poll for just a moment. The first question is, where are you joining us from? Like what sector? Are you in public sector? Are you in education? Are you in commercial? The second question is, are you familiar with the DOJ rulings? So we want to find out, how much do you know about these rulings? And the third question that we have to get us started is, what's your role in accessibility? So are you run the strategy? Are you the budget holder? Are you an accessibility hands-on expert? Or are you just getting started here? Ooh, I'm seeing some really great results here. We have a really nice balance. Public sector, education, and commercial. And looks like there's a nice balance of people that are familiar, somewhat familiar, yet not yet familiar with the rulings. And looks like folks are just getting started. This is perfect. We're going to dive in and help you get started today. Ginger and Paul, does this will this poll maybe run for a few more seconds here? And then I'll go ahead and end it and we can get started.
Terrific. Sounds good.
Yep. Excellent. Looks like a couple answers are still coming in. Thank you so much for everybody for taking these polls. These are fantastic. They really do help us guide the conversation. It looks like, okay, we're going to wrap up that poll and let's get started.
Terrific. And once again, thanks, Pete, for the introduction. Just to recap, ReadSpeaker has been providing text-to-speech solutions and an expertise in it for the past 25 years. So we're not new kids on the block. We're not a new solution. We've been around, and that leads to some of our leading text-to-speech solutions that we've been offering with over 13,000 clients globally. Our initiatives are always customer focused, to where we work closely with our customers and find a customizable feature that is specific and important to them. ReadSpeaker just isn't a SaaS solution that is embedded in a website. ReadSpeaker offers a gambit of different functionalities to support your need for technically a voice strategy. We work with organizations and support SDKs for little wearables. Of course, we allow on-premise if there's security and data questions that you may have. SaaS solution is what we do really well, providing terrific voices in a streaming online environment. But also we work with organizations in providing a strategy centered around voice. Do you want the same voice that everybody is utilizing, or do you want a custom voice that relates to your organization and or a brand? So we bring that versatile and inclusion opportunities and good design to those organizations that are interested in working with ReadSpeaker. So who are your website users? And as somebody who's worked in sped ed and somebody who's worked in education, we know that learners are diverse. There is a high number of students who end users are visually impaired or low vision. We have a growing number of neurodiverse users who are gaining access to online, which of course you're not too sure of who these users are. Elderly population, as our population grows in North America, more and more are gaining access. I have an 85-year-old mother who spends a significant amount of time online. And as her eyesight goes, the idea of an inclusive tool is ideal for her. Also, as our country becomes more diverse, or our continent becomes more diverse, not everybody language is their first language. Also, content can be complex. If you're dealing with complex content, how are you handling the literacy challenges are there? What technically decoding and reading comprehension levels are your end users providing? And then also, the one that I notice is the audio preference. People are preferring to listen to content instead of read it. And that could be because they're on a tablet. It could be depending on how they're accessing that content. So you have a growing number of end users that you need to come up with a proactive approach to support. Did you know more than 27% of adults have some type of disability? So they're not disclosing it. How are we accessing it online? That information, mainly if that content is complex. So, this is a report from the CDC. We also know that this is probably a conservative number when you truly look at the number of end users who are not even aware that they may be ADD or ADHD or even dyslexic, because traditionally that comes with a let's say a financial ability to pay for that testing for it to be diagnosed. They just learn different. And when end users are learning or consuming content different, the idea of having that audio component is key. Some more, to follow up with what I discussed, and we've done some work with understood.org, which does a great job of working with the end users who are dyslexic. So we know between 5 and 50%. Once again, those are disclosed or diagnosed. We also know that between 4 and 11%. Also, English second language, you're looking at 20, and then all of a sudden 8% have differences or difficulties with vision and hearing. When you add that percentage up, you can see that a majority or a higher number of end users need some type of tools to consume content on your website in leveling the playing field to provide that functionality for them. So the DOJ released the ADA Title II ruling. It's revising the regulations regarding the ADA, and it requires public entities to ensure their websites and mobile apps follow the WCAG 2.1 AA level certification. So what does compliance relate to? Well, it relates to stuff that is perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. First, whether you're talking UI or UX, it must be presented with the way that the user can perceive it. Okay. Also, it has to be operable, meaning navigable. Finally, it must be understandable. So if content is complex, how do you relate to that? How do you explain and define that to the end user? And it also must be robust enough to provide a wide variety, that universal design for learning to support those end users. So the Ally Project does not recommend using permanent overlay plugins. We view these kinds of products as actively harmful and a step backwards for digital accessibility efforts. So this is a terrific quote, which gets into that question regarding the UI or the design of your website. We've all seen kind of those media overlays of how they relate and how they play on a page and how they interact. Sometimes they crash the page, sometimes they interact and cover some of the page. And also not always having the right browser, right device, and or the right way for that product to interact with what the end user is supporting. So it actually become more of a hindrance instead of an inclusive tool. So just kind of defining and differentiating ReadSpeaker for some of the overlays. As I discussed, they disrupt the AT, whether it's a screen reader, whether it's enlarged text, whether it's just the page on the content. Sometimes it just gets in the way. Not all of them are WCAG compliant. Also, they threaten the user privacy by detecting the assistive technology usage. So what are they doing with that data? Also, they fail to protect the website owners from liability. So often, and I think everybody's somewhat seen these, if you're in this vertical, they're claiming that these tools make your website accessible, and they don't. It's a tough claim, I think, sometimes. And what's happening is some organizations who are trying to check that box of saying, hey, my product's accessible now, and it is going to check that box, and it's going to get us free and clear. And what we've seen is there's been a few websites, or excuse me, a few of these organizations or websites that have been sued because these media overlays are actually disrupting the AT. What ReadSpeaker does, what makes and differentiates us, is we don't interfere with common assistive technology. ReadSpeaker is traditionally part of that good design of your website. It's embedded inside of your product. Also, it is WCAG AA compliant. We have a focus on privacy, and we give control to each individual user so they have a quote unquote preference of how they wish to consume your content on your webpage. So at ReadSpeaker, we we're an honest bunch of people. I'm going to say that we don't claim to fix everything. Just because you have ReadSpeaker, it doesn't give you a full stamp of accessibility. Our product does make your website more accessible. It does make it more inclusive. But we want to defer to the accessibility experts because we're not experts on your website. For us to come in and give you our product and just give you that stamp, that's not ethical. What we do is we develop and work with your organization to create a customized solution to support your experience on your website and work with your design team for the accessibility component. So our goal is to work with you to get accessibility right. And then also, it's today's day and age, I like to refer back to the early 90s. Back then, everybody was trying to come up with a website initiative. I think today, in 2024, ReadSpeaker provides some of the best voices in the market, also accuracy and your ability to control, whether it's on-premise, whether it's streaming, or whether it's in a wearable or unique thing. I also work with you if your organization wants to build out a brand where, like everybody has their own website, we also work with organizations to provide voice as your brand. Traditionally, you're using it in commercials. Why not transfer that over? You may be using it for voice talent. Why not transfer that over onto your website and have that brand read your content for you? So this is how we make and support the compliance of it. We provide audio control and contrast and resizable text. This is a setting that is based on your device. Not that ReadSpeaker is doing it. It is more of a cookie localized onto your device, which allows you to control the audio, the contrast, and also the content, which also allows you to modify the font. For an example, open dyslexic. I don't want to get into a discussion if open dyslexic or not. Having a dyslexic individual in my household, it is very key for that individual when it comes to anchors. So seeing how that impacts my household, and it's a preference, it allows to support that content. Operable is the keyboard controls and the keystrokes regarding that. So it is going to work and work along with screen readers and other devices. And also, I think one of the things that ReadSpeaker does, because we own, after 25 years, all of our technology that we're deploying, if your content or you have a regionalization of terminology, acronym, or pronunciation, ReadSpeaker works with you and makes that extremely accurate as that content is being pronounced. So we work with you. We just don't give you a text-to-speech engine and if it doesn't pronounce something accurate, too bad. No, we work with you to make sure that, if it's a regionalization and when it comes to reading something out, ReadSpeaker will read it accurately for you. The other thing that we want to talk about is kind of that comprehensive approach that we bring, just not just reading HTML content. ReadSpeaker also enhances online content in other areas, mainly in your website and if you have forms. Inside of that, ReadSpeaker has a key feature within our web reader tool, and that's called form reading. So if somebody has a fill in the blank form for accuracy, ReadSpeaker can support that. So traditionally, HTML content is going to be our web reader tool. Online documents, not everything is just HTML or HTML5. Sometimes you have to have a document out there, whether it's a PDF, Word doc, PowerPoint, EPUB. As those file formats are uploaded, that's traditionally where a lot of the pain points on the accessibility space come in. What ReadSpeaker provides is our online document tool, which is called Doc Reader. It provides an inline document view, and then it provides a bunch of enhancements with that document, allowing that content, once again, to be converted into your plain text. Also, that document can be OCR'd, or optical character recognition. And my colleague Ginger Dewey is going to be providing a demo of that soon. But the Doc Reader tool brings, not everything is just HTML, that document reading, and or if you're taking notes or you have a course catalog, or it could be manuals online. When those PDFs are up there, how are you providing that functionality? The Doc Reader is such an essential tool. So just as an overview of our web reader tool, this is the functionality that the web reader tool provides. Once again, I want to be very clear that this is customizable. So if you don't wish to have a feature like an MP3 download, you don't have to have it. But it offers the ability to go in and have your settings, which will provide your accessibility standards regarding that. We do have a statement of accessibility too, which is key. The reading voice, so that demographic relates to you. You can go in and select some different voices of ReadSpeaker so it sounds like you. The click and listen allows you to just point, click, and listen. The enlarged text, that is a magnifier to support from there. The form reader is, to support the fill in the blank reading. The text mode is the ability to change that into that plain text. Referring back to my comment about changing that font, increasing that font, I discussed that open dyslexic font. If your website is in a different font and you prefer this one, it's easier in your eyes, go ahead and do that. The text mode also allows dark mode. So the younger generation, if they're gaining access to your website, they can change that to a black background with a light blue text, and on a tablet late at night, it's easier on the eyes. And the download MP3 feature, and of course the customizable of the pronunciation. So if you just wish to add and offer a reading voice, that is something that you can offer. And then also the functionality regarding a dictionary to help with defining a terminology, and then also a translation tool. ReadSpeaker does use 2 different APIs on the translation feature. Not only can we support and translate your content into a second language, but doing what ReadSpeaker does, we also not only translate it, but can read it back into that language. So quite a bit of functionality here just regarding web reader and the HTML content. And then the document reading, the ReadSpeaker Doc Reader. This is an example of what it looks like in the inline document viewer. It has a table of contents, ability to jump from page, to collapse the toolbar. It also allows you to go in and highlight specific content. So if you wish to add that content and then extract that content and save that onto a PDF. And then finally, our newest feature is our OCR scan document. It converts a legacy scanned paper document or saved image as a PDF into that rich, interactive, and more accessible content with audio support. It makes your inaccessible document readable, which is a terrific tool, meaning that people aren't always up to snuff with some of the tagging documents of different things. It's kind of that, I always say, that last line of defense to kind of support your documents, to support in that aspect. So let's jump. Okay. So just to recap before we turn it over to my colleague Ginger to where she can walk through a terrific demo. ReadSpeaker provides over 265 voices, over 86 languages. Reach out to us next week. It could be up to 70 languages because we're constantly creating new voices. We also have ethical voice branding for your organization. We've heard a lot of stories about organizations creating voices or cloning voices of other groups and then going to these people and say, hey, we've seen the Scarlett Johansson story or the Al Michaels story of that pressure and different things like that. That is not the ReadSpeaker ethical way. What we do is we work with your organization. If you wish to create a branded voice that makes ReadSpeaker different than the other players in the marketplace, if you create a voice with ReadSpeaker, you have sole rights to that voice. So nobody else can use that. That is that unique brand that we talk about. Also, we have easy implementation, step-by-step guidelines to where you can work with, whether it's a CMS or website products. We can easily support those. And then I will say, best in market, excellent US support team. When you call somebody, you're going to get somebody in our Boston office. If it's at night, it would default to, most likely someone, around the globe, what we're working with. But if it's during your traditional business hours between 8 a.m. and let's say 10 p.m. Eastern, most likely you're going to reach somebody at the ReadSpeaker team and interact with them, and we're going to solve your issues. So 24/7 around the clock and supporting those things. At this time, I think I'm going to turn over to my colleague Ginger, who can walk you through just kind of a real life experience of the ReadSpeaker functionality and of how we're supporting things.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that skip slide, Paul. I got click happy. First off, I'm on the EduCalls website, and as you can see on the website, we have the listen player. And as Paul was talking about, we have lots of choices. We can pick our settings. I like high contrast, so I use the yellow. Now, let's just listen to a little bit here. We'll just do this much, and I'm going to click listen.
The U.S. Department of Justice intends to issue a notice of proposed rulemaking in 2023 around web accessibility regulations for state and local government entities pursuant to Title II of the Americans with Disability Act.
And you can hear that it plays. And like Paul was saying, I can change things up. I can do click and listen, where I click on a specific paragraph and notice it is highlighted and it's going to start.
In the absence of any information regarding new,
but I can go to a certain part and just listen to that one part. We have text mode, and as Paul was saying, you can choose your font and font size. I'm going to use the +2. I'll use Open Dyslexic just to show that it's there. And for those in the younger generation, I'm not part of the younger generation. I've got the gray hair to prove it, but there it is in text mode. And if they're a distracted learner, they can adjust this to their eye width. And the cool thing about it is right here, I can make these changes. I can't read Open Dyslexic very well, so I'm going to go back to Arial. And I personally like black on light pink. That one works for me. So we can make these changes. Another important thing that we can change is the reading speed. Let's talk about the folks that are not initially English speaking residents of the United States. They may want to slow the reading speed down some so they can better consume the information. But there are others that I have worked with that are so accustomed to listening to things on screen, they want 200%. Now, I'm just going to play a couple of words at 200%.
Department of Education is considering updating regulations implementing Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973.
That's 200%, and I can tell you I caught about 3 words. I want it more in the 100% area, somewhere in here, so that it's a little bit easier for me to listen to it. Another website we have is Meet the Mayor, and this is in Atlanta, Georgia. We have the listen player up here at the top, same tools. This time I'm going to take this part of it and click listen.
One city with one bright future. A city of safe, healthy, connected neighborhoods with an expansive culture of equity, empowering upward mobility and full participation for all residents, embracing youth development, and an innovative, dependable government moving Atlanta forward.
Okay, notice I stopped it, but I didn't use my mouse up, my player up at the top. You have a mouse, you have a set of controls down here at the bottom that you can also use. When I go to this page, which is from the Library of Congress, our player looks a little bit different. And I'm just going to play a little bit here about John Adams.
About this collection. As noted in the 2008 HBO miniseries chronicling the life and career of John Adams, 1735 to 1826.
Now, to make our adjustments when we're using this player, we have a gear and we choose from there. So that allows us to customize it to our preferences. Next, I want to bring up a better approach to web accessibility. This is a document. We're no longer on a website in HTML. We're now looking at a document. And when you look, you see I have expand and collapse the toolbar, and I can change pages over here on the left for all of our young folks. So many of them are on those very small devices. They can turn off that side window if they want to. And this is in layout mode where you can see it. If I go to text mode, notice everything left justified. And I have image to text up here where if this was a giant image, I could convert it over. I want to read just a few words here. So I'm going to highlight and click listen. And I apologize, my computer's running slow. Let's try this a second time, but not quite give it so much. Since I'm in a web meeting, sometimes that slows things down. Okay, it is not loving me today, so I'm just going to go up here and click listen and let it begin from the top. All right, something I do want to show you is that we have a highlighter, and down here we talk about overlays won't make your website compliant. Let's say I needed some information from that. I could use my pointer and highlight and choose a color, and we'll just do another one with a different color. I do want to show you that you can put borders around what you have so that your colorblind individuals can then hear it. Moving on, same document. This one has a different voice on it, and maybe it will be happier with me.
Worried about compliance with web accessibility laws and standards?
And this voice was our Kayla voice. And one more voice we can hear. And I'm going to go to page 2 on this one so we can see something a little bit different. And we're going to say, just read a little bit. And this voice is Samuel, I believe.
Accessibility advocates say accessibility overlays disrupt assistive technology, AT, leave real accessibility barriers unaddressed.
So you can see we have the different voices programmed. And I did not show this initially, but I want to go back. And right here, let's say the word accessibility. I don't know what it means, so I'm going to look it up in my dictionary. I can see that it is a noun, and I have definitions and I have examples. If I wanted to translate new accessibility regulations, I could translate this to the language of my choice, and I'm going to say French. So I typed an F and I get French. And this top part says I'm using Google Translate, and just so we can hear it.
Nouvelle réglementation sur l'accessibilité du web.
Ooh, I had that up at 200. Let's pull that down to 100 and try that again.
Nouvelle réglementation sur l'accessibilité du web.
And that's one of our French voices. Paul, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and we will go back in.
Hey, Ginger and Paul, this is Pete. I think we'd like to, are we going to push out, when would you like to push out that additional poll question?
I think now is a great time.
I think
Great,
so too.
that's what I figured. Yep, excellent. All right, so here we go. We've got a few more two more poll questions. This will just take one moment. So please, attendees, please take these polls. We would love to know, what do you need most to improve your accessibility efforts? Do you need expertise? Are you looking for partners? Do you need training internally? What would be most helpful for you? And then are you interested in trying out ReadSpeaker for free? We would love to know. Looks like training is taking it. This is very helpful to us. So thank you so much, everybody, for taking the poll. We're going to let this thing run out a little bit more. You know, one thing I've been really interested in is that this ruling has come down, and I think that this is great that we're building awareness for it today. We're going to continue this drumbeat, and we'll be talking more about this at the upcoming GovAI Summit and Voice in AI. So just to let folks know, ReadSpeaker is an important partner of ours at Voice in AI in October 28th through 30th, and it's co-located with our GovAI Summit, our public sector event. So attend either event, and you can go back and forth between the conferences, enjoy content from both events. So all the details are at voice.ai. I'll drop this into the chat, voice.ai and govaisummit.com. We're going to be continuing the conversation there. There's going to be a lot more content around accessibility and implementing these. So for those of you that need training, that's going to be a great opportunity for your teams. And hint, hint, our events are free right now for public sector education and nonprofit attendees. So definitely get in on that deal. Or if you're a commercial organization, 50% off this week through our flash sale for July. So it's a very good time to get registered. So take advantage of that. And ReadSpeaker, thanks again for being an important partner of those upcoming events. All right, so this is really interesting. It looks like a lot of training is needed, some partnerships, and a lot of interest in trying out the ReadSpeaker platform. So I will end that poll. I'm going to share the results here. Y'all can see it. It really looks like internal training is a big need out there. And a lot of folks are interested in trying ReadSpeaker, so we're going to make sure you have an opportunity to do that. So Paul, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
And I think what we can do is, thanks, Pete. And I think what we can do also is on our follow-up, we can easily share some of these examples that are on the website so everybody can go evaluate it from the United States Congress. You know, we always get those great stories of Congress gets a bill in front of them and there's going to be a vote on it, and it's 100, it's like 560 pages. It's amazing how often when that bill is up there and it's on that website, people will be utilizing ReadSpeaker, increasing the reading rate and listening to that document, listening for different things. So high usage regarding that, because it's almost impossible to read that font, or excuse me, read that content that quickly, have also the ability to, hey, do I want to vote it or not? So we know this is one way that the tool is being used. Also, the Commission on Civil Rights, EDUCAUSE, which of course is it's really the gold standard when it comes to data and security and privacy relating to content online in education regarding that. And of course, the City of Atlanta is a great example of our commitment of working with local, state, and federal governments regarding that. So, and of course, the Library of Congress, which has, once again, data and security demands and requirements regarding data servers and different things of that nature that ReadSpeaker works so closely with. So those are some
Hey, Paul.
examples. Yeah.
Paul, I want to just interject here. Thank you so much for that. And what a great use case that you're sharing with us. And just to let folks know, Library of Congress, leaders from Library of Congress will also be speaking at our conference. And in our prep calls with them, they've let us know that they run one of the largest databases in the world of information. It's actually really impressive. And great to know you're working with them. We have a question that came in that I think is ideal, Paul, for like where we are right now. Rose Robinson, and Rose, great to see you, by the way. Thanks for joining us. She has never heard of this product and loves that she's able to learn about it here. Is there an effort to deploy at all agencies, especially for citizens who really need access to participate? And how can we help with raising awareness? Paul, I'm gonna turn that over to you. And I think this really relates to why we're having this webinar today.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, it is about awareness about the end users and how users are doing it. ReadSpeaker loves to partner with organizations to provide this type of functionality built in regarding good design regarding that. Often there will be, whether it's a webmaster or contact regarding accessibility, and it doesn't have to be ReadSpeaker. We prefer it to be ReadSpeaker, but requesting this functionality I think is key. Make sure that people have that awareness. Traditionally, in the early stages, when WCAG was going on, it was really about supporting end users with no sight regarding navigation and quote unquote, supporting screen readers. And what we're finding is there are more and more end users with literacy, low vision, who may not have screen readers. Also the ability to modify content to make it a learning preference or easier to consume and understand. So it's a larger mass centered around that kind of that universal design to include everybody. And it's the old example of, when you're walking through the airport and you have your luggage and you've got to go up the stairs or you go up the ramp. Of course, you're not going to carry that heavy luggage up the stairs. You're going to use that ramp. That is an example of great design. That's an example of universal design. It's about inclusion. You're not going to use it every time, but there will be those times that you may need it. And this is a perfect example of using it. So I would go back to those organizations. And if you're part of those organizations, I recommend having just a conversation regarding that, and then having those use cases. And of course, we can provide examples for evaluation in free trials too. Thanks for the
Paul, thank you so much. Another really good question came in, asking for clarification on the DOJ ruling. Is it requiring education institutions to provide a solution like ReadSpeakers for its content, or just making sure that the content is formatted in a way that a screen reader can read it? So it's a little bit of a technicality, but I thought maybe you can help answer that question.
Yeah, so one, it has to be accessible for all learners. Also, and this is going to be relating to education. So whether it's a public website, it could be a course catalog and a PDF of all your courses online. It could be within a learning management system, in that content inside that learning management system. Education is a little bit different because there's a lot of individuals who are have accommodations, whether it's a program or a testing accommodation, and those accommodations can be law binding regarding WAGCAG and other, whether it's 508 and or an IEP, depending on what level of school you're at. And those examples are by law that you need to provide that. The other underlying thing, which is really the theme of our discussion today, it's about the idea of inclusion. We're seeing many, many, many users who are gaining access to higher education, and they're undisclosed, most likely low vision, it could be learning disabled, LD. Those are your end users who are at risk. Also coming out from that learning loss of the pandemic, tools like ReadSpeaker embedded inside of a learning management system provide that proactive approach that tools the level playing field to allow those students to support that content and consume it in that way. So first, I think it's good design. Second, depending on the number of end users who are who have that quote unquote accommodation, it is required by law.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's see. Do we have any more questions popping in? Looks like not at this moment. So Paul, you want to wrap us up? We're right at 2:50. I think we're right on time. So I want to thank everybody for participating today. Paul, you want to go ahead and wrap us up?
Yep, I'll wrap it up. But, I mean, technically the last slide's on privacy. It's one thing that we take very seriously regarding that. ReadSpeaker doesn't resell your data. We allow you to access your data through the analytics, through the content that is read. Cookies are on the local device, and also only kept for one cent. There is no end user tracking. So when it comes to data and security, it's key. And also there is no speech enabled content stored. So if it's in the cloud, it's dynamically being generated. So this is something that's really important, that we just wanted to talk about that data and security regarding the privacy aspect.
I think it's a huge topic.
And I think at that time, I know we're up against the gun. Ginger, do you want to go to the last slide for us, please? I apologize. No, terrific. So, you know, from the ReadSpeaker team, from Ginger and I, we want to thank Pete for having us, to give us the ability for us to talk more about inclusion, about WAGCAG requirements, and the new guidelines coming down from DOJ. So thank you very much, Pete, for the time today. Also, this is my contact information if you want to reach out to ReadSpeaker and try out our product. It is free. You also can view it on our site to play around with it and go from there. And we can provide a really rich environment for you and all your end users. So thank you for your time today. And thanks again, Pete.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And Ginger, thank you so much. And thanks for doing a live demo. You're very brave. But it went very well. I want to thank everybody for attending. For those of you that took the poll and asked for an opportunity to demo ReadSpeaker, we will be following up with you directly. We're also going to follow up with all of you with a link to this recording, as well as transcripts, to make sure that you have all of the information from us on this webinar. So thank you again for joining us today. Thank you, ReadSpeaker, for being our host. And thanks to Paul and Ginger for doing such an excellent job.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you all.